Good morning Year 4 and welcome to Thursday's maths lesson. Now this lesson is for the children who have got the Year 3 booklet, and today our learning is going to be on page 23. So the page you are looking for is this one. So that's our learning for today. Okay then, so we're going to continue with our fractions, and before we start I want us to do a quick warm-up just to get our brains into gear, and it is linked to fractions. So this is something that you can access at home. You can access it using top marks, and there's some different levels of fractions that you can do. So let's have a look at what we're going to do as our warm-up. Okay, so it's called a fraction matcher. So you're going to match the picture, the representation of the picture to the fraction. So we're going to go on this one here. And I'm going to start on level 1. Now, if you want to access this at home, then you can choose from different levels. It goes all the way from level 1 to level 8. So I'm going to go on level 1 just to show you the basics of how to get around it. Okay, so what you can see here is we've got two containers and we need to match the fraction to the picture representation. So, for example, let's go for the first one. So we've got 1 at the top as my numerator and 4 at the bottom as my denominator, which means I've got 1/4. Now I need to find a shape which has 4 parts but only one is shaded. So can you see where I've got a shape with 4 parts, 4 sections, but only one of them is shaded? So I think I can see one here. So this has got 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, which is for my denominator, and it's just got one of those parts which is shaded, which is my numerator. Okay, let's check if that's correct. Brilliant, so that one is correct. Let's have another one. So we press OK, and then we need to do another match. Okay, so let's have a look. We're going to go for this one. So this is 3/4. So I want to have a look at a similar representation, however not one, it's 3 parts that are shaded this time. So let's have a look if we can see it. 3 parts which are shaded out of 4. I think I can see it, this one here. Let's check if I am correct. Wonderful. Okay, let's go for another one. So I've got 1 at the top and 2 at the bottom. So I'm looking for a shape which has 2 parts, but only one of them is shaded. And we call that 1/2, don't we? So I need to have a look for a shape which only half of it is shaded. Can you spot it before I do? Okay, so well done if you got that one at home. So we've got 2 parts with one of them shaded, and that is 1/2. Lovely. Right, so you can have a go at these at home, and it's called a fraction matcher, and if you put it into your search engine or into top marks, then you can also find it on there. And if you want to level up and progress onto more levels, then you can do, and it will just help you with your fractions learning. Okay, let's go back to today's learning. So we've done our fraction match, we have warmed up a little bit, and now we're going to have a look at our learning question. So our learning question is to begin to order fractions. So we're going to put them from the smallest amount to the largest amount. So that's going to be our main focus for today's learning. Now before we start, I did set a challenge, didn't I? And I wanted to know what fraction these 3 shapes were. So we're going to just recap that before we move on, and you can check whether you were right at home. Okay, so thinking back to our warm-up starter just, how many parts have I got? And that's going to be my denominator. So I've got my line that separates them, my denominator. I've got 2 parts, and how many are shaded? 1 is shaded, so that is 1/2. So well done if you got that at home. Let's move on to my next representation. How many parts do I have? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is my denominator, which goes at the bottom. My numerator is how many of those parts are shaded, which is 1. And this should say 1/4. So well done if you got that at home. Let's move on to our final representation of yesterday's challenge. So how many parts have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is my denominator. my numerator at the top is how many of those parts are shaded. 1, 2, 3. So 3/4 is for my final representation. Well done if you got these at home and you completed my challenge. Okay, so we're just going to recap what a fraction is. So a fraction tells you how many parts of a whole you have. You've got the numerator, which is the parts, and you've got the denominator, which is the whole. So how many parts of the whole are shaded? So we've recapped that already. Okay. So what I want us to do now is to just identify what my fraction is from what I have shaded. And I've got two different parts that I've got some with the denominator, which is going to be larger because it's got more parts than this denominator, which will be less because it has less parts. And we're going to see which fraction is bigger than the other. So let's have a look how many parts I've got here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4 parts. How many parts have I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got more parts there. Right, so I'm going to shade some of my fractions so we can make a fraction here. I'm going to have 1 part of this fraction is shaded, and I'm also going to have just 1 part of this fraction. So my numerator is going to be the same because only 1 part of my whole is shaded. So I can have 1 here and I can have 1 here. Now this one is 1/4, and this one, because it's 8 parts, we say eighths. So we're using the th sound, eighths. So I've got 1/8 and I've got 1/4. Which is the bigger fraction? Which has more shaded? Is it going to be this one with my quarters? Or is it going to be this one with my eighths? Which one is bigger? Have a think at home. Which one is going to be bigger? Okay, so hopefully you would have noticed, I'll put it in a blue colour so you can see clearly that this is my bigger fraction because there is more shaded out of the whole. The bigger the denominator is, the more parts there are, and the parts get smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you have got 1/4, that is going to be a bigger amount than 1/8. And you can see that this is a bigger amount than this on the board. So that's something to think about when you come on to doing your work. Okay, so let's have another go here. So how many parts have I got in this representation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 is my denominator. That's how many parts there are in the whole. And we call them fifths. Okay, so it's using that sound again. Fifths. Okay, and let's have a look at how many parts I've got in this representation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're back on to eighths. Right, so the more parts there are, the bigger the denominator is. So there are more parts in this section here. Right, so I'm going to shade again and we're going to see which one is going to be bigger. I'm going to go for 2/5. Okay, so 2 is my numerator because that's how many of those parts in the whole are shaded. So I've got 2/5. And now I'm going to shade on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 parts are shaded out of my 8 that I've got. So 4 is my numerator. And that we will say is 4/8. Okay, so I've got 4/8. Which one of these fractions is going to be the bigger one? How much is shaded? Is it going to be this one? Has this one got more shaded? Or is it going to be this one? Have a think at home before we move on. Okay, so hopefully you would have noticed that our bigger fraction is actually this one here. Because you can see that actually 4/8 is also the same as shading 1/2 of the full whole. And you can see here for 2/5 we haven't shaded half. We are still below the halfway point. So this is going to be the larger fraction. Okay? we're going to do is we're going to come on to ordering fractions, putting them in order. Now remember, the bigger the denominator, the more parts there are. And you can see here that I've got this here, which is 1. So 1 means 1 whole. It means that every single part in that shape is shaded. Here we've got 1 and then we've got a half. So that means I've got 1 whole shape, but then I've also got an extra part and it's 1 half. It hasn't made it to 2 full shapes just yet. So let's put these, so I need to find the denominator that has the largest amount, and that will give me the smallest piece. Remember, the bigger the denominator is, the smaller those parts are. So I need to find a denominator which has the biggest amount. Can you see at home which denominator has the biggest amount? Okay, is it over here? In the middle maybe? Or is it over this side? Which denominator has the biggest amount, which means it's got the most parts in the whole? Okay, so hopefully you have got this one, so well done if you got that at home. So 1/6 is going to be my smallest amount because it's got the most parts, and the more parts you have, the smaller that amount is. So let's move on to my next highest number in the denominator. So I'm looking at those blue numbers. Which of those blue numbers is the next largest? And that will give me my next amount. So can you see I'm scanning through? Which of these numbers? Well done if you got this one at home. So you can see that 1/5 is next in line because that is the next number. But a 5th is larger than a 6th. So the bigger the denominator, the smaller those pieces get at home. Okay, so my next one, which one am I looking at next? So I've got a 3, a 4, a 2, and a whole one and a 2, or a whole one on its own, which is the next one where the denominator is the biggest. Okay, so well done if you got this one at home. So let's move this into order. So now our next fraction that goes in order is 1/4. So 1/4 is next. Now we've got a whole, which means all the parts are shaded. 1/3, so one of the 3 parts are shaded. 1/2, so one of the 2 halves are shaded. And 1 whole one plus another half. So which one is going to be next in my sequence from smallest to largest? So I'm going to have 1/3 is next in my sequence. So you can see that these are getting bigger and bigger in the sizes, but there are more parts, which means it's smaller. So my next one is going to be a half, so I'm going to put that in here. Okay, so my fraction is a half. And then I've got 2 left. I've got 1 whole one and I've got 1 1/2. Which one is going to go next? Which one is going to be the smaller amount? Because I need my biggest right here on the board. I need the next smaller amount here. I'm going to show you just so you can visualise what 1 looks like and what 1 1/2 looks like. So with my pen, I'm going to have, here is 1. And that 1 whole is shaded. So there is 1. Let's have a look at 1 1/2. So I've still got my 1. And I'll shade that in. But then I've also got another part which is split into 2, and one of those is shaded as well. Which one is the next amount? Because remember, it's going from smallest to largest. So I need the largest here. Is this the largest or is this the largest? Which one do you think looks the largest? This one or this one? Okay, so hopefully you have noticed that this is the largest. It's like having 1 whole pizza plus another half. And this one is just 1 whole pizza on its own. So we're going to move this fraction, which is 1, next in line. And then I'm going to move 1 1/2 because that was the biggest. So when you come to ordering in your work today, you can also draw these representations out if you want to help you visualise how much that actually is. Okay, so when you have finished your work, or even if you want to do your own warm-up at home, I've got a true or false question for you to do, and you can get in touch through the Year 4 email to let me know whether you think it's true or false. Let's have a look at what it says. So I have shaded in 2/6 of these stars. So that means that I should have 6 stars in total, and 2 of them are shaded. Is it true or is it false? If you want to send your responses in before you start your work today, that's fine. You can do that and we'll see who is the fastest at telling me whether I'm true or false. Good luck everybody, and well done for all of your hard work this term.